Coming to you from the Big Island of Hawaii, it's the Songs and Stories Podcast. And now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
Aloha, this is Steve Roby, backstage at the Kahilu Theater once again, and my very special guest today is slack key guitar master Keola Beamer. Aloha, welcome.
Aloha, Steve. Nice to be with you. Thank you very much.
Great. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is your Coming Home to Waimea concert. It's also the season opener for the Kahilu Theater. I was looking back, it looks like the last time you were here, it's kind of fuzzy because there was a pandemic, but I think it was with Henry Kapono?
Yeah.
Back maybe 2019?
That sounds about right.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Then we were both out of work for about 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, all musicians around the planet were out of work.
It was tough, yeah.
So, we learned a lot of stuff. I managed to get kind of closer to my wife during that period because we spent so much time together, so that was a lovely kind of bonus to the thing.
Reconnected.
Yeah. So that's great.
So being raised here on the Big Island, can you share a bit about what it was like then and how music came into your life? I understand your mom was a great influence on music for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, my family is kind of the... Really, I look at my life and I wonder, how did I manage to get so blessed and just have this amazing Hawaiian family to, be in the midst of. And my great-grandmother, Helen Beamer, one of Hawaii's finest composers, my own work doesn't even touch the hem of her skirt, just beautiful compositions. Then my mom, Nona Beamer, taught at Kamehameha schools for over 40 years. Beautiful hula dancer and composer. Then my grandmother, Louise Beamer. Now, my grandmother and grandfather lived about 6 miles down the road from here, up on the slopes of Mauna Kea.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's where our family ranch was,
Nice.
Hawaiian Homestead Ranch. So we had 450 acres, and my grandfather ran about 400 head of cattle. That's how we made our living, Do
you remember your first music experience?
It was, my family always just had these great parties, and so it's probably during one of those. I remember, this is true. I remember as a little boy, 5 or 6 years old, kind of wandering around while the family was having a party. I'd bump into Auntie and say, "Oh, baby, you look so, how about a little, you want a sip of this beer? Oh, have a little sip." I'll take a sip, then next Auntie, "Oh, baby, you want to, I had a blast.
Let's get the party started.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the development of contemporary Hawaiian music?
Sure.
What you experienced?
That's kind of a deep subject, but essentially, the guitar, as the ukulele, they're not Hawaiian instruments. The ukulele is, a Portuguese instrument, and the guitar, Europe somewhere, we still have a debate about how the guitar began. But at any rate, these instruments were introduced to Hawaii and then acculturated. By that term, I mean that the culture kind of wrapped around them and used that beautiful gift of that music, in our own culture.
Sure.
So the guitar was introduced in this little town in about 1830.
Wow.
And the story is that the king, by this time, Keola Beamer III, George Vancouver, the English sea captain, had left some cattle for Kamehameha I as kind of the idea being that perhaps the English sailing ships could come and reprovision with this beef, as the years went by, if there was a cattle herd on Hawaii Island. So, but what they didn't realize is Hawaiians had no method of controlling these animals. So Keola sent to what is now California, used to be part of Mexico, Santa Cruz, to send 3 vaqueros, Spanish cowboys, to come over with their horses, their saddles, and with them they bought a few guitars, and that's how the guitar was introduced to Hawaii. And then we began kind of figuring out, the Spanish did not stay long enough to teach us how to tune it, so we kind of had to figure out what we're going to do with this thing, and so these beautiful tunings were invented, and that kind of became the centerpiece of our art form, the Hawaiian slack key guitar. all these interesting tunings that families develop. It's kind of top secret for quite a while. It was very difficult to learn because each tuning kind of went with the family. Unless you were a member of that family, probably not good.
They wouldn't share.
No. And but eventually, it kind of it grew, and young people were interested in it, and
Nice.
pretty soon.
So your focus with contemporary Hawaiian music came along during the Hawaii Renaissance in the 1970s, is that right?
Yeah, that's generally regarded as the Renaissance of Hawaiian music.
How would you say that it's evolved since then, or has it evolved since then?
Well, it's, there's something, some traditionalists kind of want to just keep things the same, like Uncle Ray Kane and I used to tour in the 90s, and, he was always kind of cautious about the music kind of changing a little bit too much, And, the thing about artists is, it's wonderful to recreate the work, but, we sort of have an artistic DNA that sort of asks us to, to maybe reinvent it a little bit, or try something new, or try a new idea, or try to understand a little bit more deeply what the composer is intending, and then figure it out from there. So it grew, it blossomed. All the tunings became public. Much more people playing it. Music is all over the world now.
Sure.
And
just a few weeks ago, there was a group called Kamekoa that came in, 3 electric ukulele players playing contemporary Hawaiian music, and a little bit of Grateful Dead influence there. So it's taken on a few new steps.
Sure, and that's good. I mean, music has to grow, it has to change. Young people got to be interested in it, so that's a natural course of events. I'm just glad it's still around. And when we invent a new way to play a piece or a new interpretation, we don't destroy the old one. That's still there, so I think it's good. Kind of grow.
As long as it's respected.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
We stand on the shoulders of Uncle Ray and Gabby, those that came before us as the slack key guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your Aloha Music Camp.
Sure.
It's returning to Hawaii Island next year. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, about 21 years ago now, I was in Seattle. I was doing a workshop, and I was the person that sort of figured out how to notate Hawaiian slack key guitar. So I wrote the first method book for the Hawaiian slack key guitar in 1972. Prior to that, there was no written anything, zero.
Why is that?
Well, people couldn't figure out how to notate it, for one thing. Standard musical notation for the guitar is just treble clef. So if you're going to lower those strings down, you're going to keep writing these low ledger lines, and with each tuning, the notes are moving around, right? So it's like standard musical notation for slack key is almost impossible. So instead, I found this thing. I was studying at the university, and I was playing in a Renaissance music quartet, and I was reading this process called lute tablature. So I was playing lute, and I was looking sort of at a picture of the lute, where the fingers go in the strings. So you got 6 horizontal lines, and then the frets, vertical lines, and then the numbers. So first string, second fret, put your finger here.
Wow, okay.
That kind of thing. So it's like a picture of the lute. And then that's when the light bulb went off in my head. Oh my God, this would work for the Hawaiian slack key guitar. Work for any tuning.
Wow.
Any kind of weird tuning you want to invent, you can still write it down using tablature.
I hope you're recognized in the Hawaiian history books, the music books of...
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, there was a concern at the time. I remember asking my mother, will I be criticized for this? And she said, yes, because, this it's going to make some kupuna uncomfortable that you're like sharing the secrets of the Hawaiian slack key guitar. And that, you could feel that when that book first came out. Some people were very uncomfortable with it. But the first time some little young person played slack key for their tutu or their grandmother or something, and she just melted, hearing that sound.
Sheet,
yeah, their little boy is playing slack key on dad's guitar, reading this piece of paper. That criticism evaporated completely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's get back to the music camp. Sure. When does it start next year, and how can people sign up for it?
Yeah, you can go online, alohamusiccamp.com, and that's kind of how everybody's doing it these days. We've been operating for about 20 years now. Okay. And so I got distracted from my story. But anyway, in Seattle, I'm passing around this tablature, right? So I'm doing a workshop. There's about 30 people there. I hand it out. I start walking around, passing music. But I get to the 30th guy. The first guy is playing the music already. And, you know, it sounds good.
Yeah.
He's playing the notes, but there's something lacking. The musicality is lacking. The feeling is lacking. It's mechanical. So I was complaining about it to my mother one day, and I said, you know, how do we fix that? And she said, you know, you got to spend more time with these students. You know, if you can get them to come to Hawaii and kind of immerse them in the culture a little bit, then they're going to get it.
Sure.
But you can't do it in 3 hours. And she was
Right.
exactly right. And so that's where we just took a chance one day. Let's kind of invite some friends, and
Nice.
kind of was more like a rave, you know, just having fun. And then over the years, it got more teachers involved. So we have Olelo Hawaii language, Hawaiian language, ukulele, saki guitar,
Nice.
hula. I mean, you got to look at the program. And I am blessed with the best kumu in Hawaii, because they love the program and they love the vibe of all of us being there.
Have you got a
together.
date for that?
Yeah, you know, fortunately, I can't remember it, but it's
Okay. Just go online.
yeah, go online. It's like anyway, it's I'm sorry, I can't remember.
It's okay. What's the rest of the year look like for you? Are you working on any recordings or touring?
Well, one of the ancillary things that developed from Aloha Music Camp is we created a foundation, and so this came from my sort of beginning. My brother and I, as young boys, you know, we didn't have very much money. Single mom raising 2 Hawaiian kids, and so, you know, we were disadvantaged in the sense that we didn't have money, but we didn't know it because we were loved by our family. And then we also had our ukuleles. The ukuleles brought joy to our lives, and, you know, happy little fingers. Ukulele is very user-friendly for kids.
Sure.
So I was in Cambodia a couple of years ago working on a film score in Kathmandu, and we went, you know, out into these pretty remote communities with some local friends and stuff, some musicians. And I noticed this sort of inherent sadness in the community. You know, they're still recovering from the Khmer Rouge in Vietnam, and you know, this terrible cultural you know, thing that happened to them, and millions of them were killed. So when you get into the little towns and really rural areas where there's so little income and people are, you know, really struggling in their existence, I'd see the kids, and they'd be in the shadows just looking so sad, you know. And I thought, man, is there anything we could do? And then I thought of the ukulele and how they brought us joy.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, what if we bought a bunch of ukuleles, sat down with the kids, showed them how to play it. So we found a school in Cambodia. We bought in 5 instructors, 35 ukuleles, and we started teaching the kids. And we didn't want to teach them our music. We wanted them to have the understanding of the chords so that they could do their own music. Essentially, we're trying to acculturate the ukulele in Cambodia.
Wow, nice.
You know? And it worked out beautifully. 6 months later, we started getting videos from these kids playing in town squares with their kupuna and their relatives going, yay,
Wow,
everybody's happy
cool.
and singing. The kids have little stickers on their ukuleles, and they're just going to town.
I hope somebody documented that on the film.
Oh yeah, we got
Okay,
some nice
good.
footage of it. So
Good.
that's one of the things we're going to be doing in October. We're leaving for India. So we're taking 40 ukuleles to Sikkim, India, working with a school there with, you know, impoverished Indian children.
That must make you feel so good.
Oh, it does. You know,
my
and
gosh.
especially when they do their own music. That really lights me up.
Wow, nice. So fans watching your show today on Kahilu TV that are listening to this that haven't seen the performance yet, what can they look forward to when they tune in?
Well,
What are you doing today?
For one thing, you know, I try to be, how should I put it? I really work at trying to authentically present what I think is the beautiful stuff of the Hawaiian culture. You know, whether it's the guitar. I'm so fortunate because my wife is a kuma hula, so she has just expert hula knowledge. And she also has a really beautiful background in native instruments. So we're combining native instruments with the Hawaiian slaki guitar and the hula. So it really is kind of it's more than just watching a guy play the guitar.
Right. I saw you earlier brought the nose flute in.
Yeah, I
and
love
introduced
those
that to the
instruments. They
show,
kind
yeah.
of bring you back in time.
Nice. Well, Keola, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
Have a great show here at the Kahilu Theater, and enjoy your time back here on the Big Island.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being with you.
Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Songs and Stories podcast. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. We'll see you next week on Songs and Stories. Aloha.